Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining me. My name is Gio, and normally I do a DC podcast every week and give a rundown of the news. But tonight I came across an article that I really wanted to talk about. It's a pretty lengthy article from the New York Times, and one of their writers did an interview with DC Films president Walter Hamada, who's now in charge of all the DC superhero movies that are coming out both on HBO Max and in theaters. It's a article that's getting a lot of attention on Twitter for the wrong reasons, and we're gonna go over that as I skim through this article. It's a pretty lengthy article, but I did read it beforehand, and there's a couple things I want to point out there in this article. So let's get right to it as soon as I can. Let's see, do that, and that way you guys can see and sort of read along here. So New York Times, and the article says managing movie superheroes is about to get a lot more complicated. All right, well, hopefully DC knows what they're doing. I have a lot of confidence in them, especially after DC fandom. But hey, I'm not many. So let's see. Article starts off. Walter Hamada is not your typical superhero wrangler. He doesn't have a booming fanboy in chief personality. Okay, he's referencing Kevin Feige, and he's basically saying he's not Kevin Feige and lists his credentials here. Says Mr. Hamada is tasked with managing the careers of Wonder Woman, Batman, Cyborg, Flash, Superman, and every other character. Now, this is the first bit of information that gets revealed to us from the article here. And again, he is also pulling notes from his interview with Walter Hamada. The most expensive DC movies, up to 4 a year starting in 2022, are designed for release in theaters, Mr. Hamada said. Additional superhero films, 2 annually, is the goal, perhaps focused on riskier characters like Batgirl and Static Shock, will arrive exclusively on HBO Max, fledgling streaming service owned by Warner Media. Sorry, it's pretty late right now, but wanted to talk about this. So let's pause here for a second. No surprise, HBO Max is doing some DC projects. We know that the Green Lantern is coming, a Green Lantern Corps HBO Max limited series. We also know the Peacemaker will be arriving. Peacemaker is a character from James Gunn's The Suicide Squad, played by John Cena. Apparently that character is getting a lot of hype, and it was enough hype that Warner Media wants to do an HBO Max limited series, which I think a lot of people are excited about. I'm definitely excited about. I think John Cena is going to have a career year next year with both Fast 9 and the Suicide Squad, and the hype for this Peacemaker series will be higher than ever. So yeah, no surprise there. We know HBO Max is doing some DC projects there. 4 movies a year starting in 2022. Is that a lot? Yeah. I mean, for a while, Marvel only did 2 movies a year. Then they did 3 movies a year. And now I think they're talking about doing 4 movies. So you're going to have 8 comic book movies a year in this decade, plus streaming service. Disney Plus and their Marvel projects, HBO Max and their DC projects. So there will be no shortage of comic book movie content and limited series. We'll see how that goes. So far, there's not been that much fatigue, as this article later explains, but who knows? All it takes is a bad streak of movies. So that remains to be seen. So the article continues with Mr. Hamada quoting, "With every movie that we're looking at now, we are thinking, what's the potential Max spinoff, and that's evident again by the Peacemaker character getting his own limited series. I'd imagine that they're going to look at, I mean, they're also doing the Batman spinoff on the Gotham PD, which is also getting a lot of hype. Could we see something from the Snyder Cut? Probably, but we'll get into this article and what this writer says about the Snyder Cut. So the article continues, if there was a glut of superheroes before, just wait. And the article talks about the concept of the multiverse and how Warner Brothers is upping their production to make that multiverse work, potentially 2 Batmans having their own franchises. Again, Ben Affleck is only doing the Snyder Cut and the Flashpoint movie as of right now, but hey, never say never. I believe he will do that Batman movie where he faces off against Deathstroke. It's only a matter of time. But he talks about the multiverse here and revisits Warner Brothers' struggles as far as DC movies are concerned. Talks about how there was a lack of movies over the past couple of years with Joker, Shazam, and Aquaman, all hits for Warner Brothers. I'd argue those movies, in particular Shazam and Aquaman, were successful because they barely referenced the DCEU. They were allowed to be their own standalone movies. I mean, yeah, in Shazam, you had the Batarang and a newspaper with Superman, and then the headless Superman shows up at the end. With Aquaman, you get one Steppenwolf mention, and then that's it. Those movies were allowed to be their own standalone movies, barely referencing the DCEU, hence why I believe they were largely successful, because that would grant them very little studio interference, which Warner Brothers has been notorious for back when Batman v Superman, Justice League, and Suicide Squad were out in theaters. So he sums up the creative misfires led to Hamada taking over, compares Disney to Warner Brothers and Marvel to DC, how Warner Brothers has, trailed DC, or Warner Brothers has trailed Marvel for pretty much the past decade. Again, you're talking about stuff that has already been well written, well documented, well discussed. You're just pouring salt on our closed wounds. Us DC fans, we're a little bit annoyed probably, but we're no longer triggered. We're not screaming and pulling our hair. Okay, we're excited about the future, especially after DC fandom. But the article continues, so let's just continue there. So Disney has succeeded in part because its divisions collaborate, great. And then we get another quote here from Walter Hamada. In the past, we were so secretive. It was shocking to me, for example, how few people at the company were actually allowed to read scripts for the movies we are making. Yep, that was during the Kevin Tsujihara era and the Jeff Johns era of DC films. From what I'm getting, Jeff Johns was very much a control freak, given how successful he was with DC Comics Run, the New 52, and how he was basically put in charge and supposed to be the Kevin Feige of the DCEU a couple years ago. And it was proven in more ways than one that he is not that guy. Just because you know comics and you can write great comics doesn't mean you can run a film universe. Hence why we have Walter Hamada now, who, again, in my opinion, is doing a lot of good things. Walter Hamada, AT&T, which bought out Warner Brothers. They're doing some great stuff. All right, I'm a fan of DC fandom. I'm very optimistic about the future of the DCEU. But let's get back to the article here. It talks about HBO Max's subscribers, 12.6 million compared to 195 million from Netflix. And how do you close that gap? You start by putting superheroes to work. which he's right about that. With Disney Plus, ramping up their Marvel um, limited series, starting with WandaVision next month, or actually in a week. Wow. Um, the streaming wars, they're gonna, have to do something to respond to Disney. Otherwise, they're gonna take over. Even Netflix is looking for their own superhero franchise. So expect to see more superheroes in streamings outside of HBO Max and Disney Plus. That is for sure. And the article continues. Warner Bros. Has at least as many comic-based movies in various stages, including Suicide Squad. Yep, the Batman, in which Robert Pattinson. He's so much more than Twilight. What? I mean, yeah, general audiences probably still know him as Twilight, but he's done so many great films this past decade. Put something else, okay? Only film buffs are really reading this. And then Black Adam, starring Dwayne Johnson, which I'm very excited for. Supposed to start shooting first quarter of 2021. And then, of course, the Batman spinoff and the Suicide Squad spinoffs that I previously mentioned as well. Sony Entertainment has their own slate. Yep, he's once again stating that superhero movies are going to take over Hollywood pretty much. I mean, they already have, but there's going to be a very sharp increase in the next coming years, especially as Sony Pictures is reportedly they were trying to make their own Spider-Verse and eventually leave Marvel, and business decision, whatever. Other studios like Amazon Prime are doing things, and Valiant Entertainment is also doing stuff, which, of course, the article states, movies, IPs, intellectual properties lead to merchandise. So, yes, superhero movies are definitely the thing. It leads to other stuff, roller coasters, theme parks, merchandising, etc., etc. Will there be fatigue from superhero movies? This article quotes David A. Gross, who runs Franchise Entertainment Research, a film consultancy. He says, if the stories are well written and the production values are strong, then there will be little sign of fatigue. And that is a well-proven statement. Just look at Marvel. And even some of DC's work, Aquaman, Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman 1984 isn't getting the best reviews, but it still has a larger share of fans than previous DC movies, especially coming out the gates. The article, give me a second. Sorry about that. The article then goes on to say, biggest challenge facing Warner Brothers involves a recent prioritization of HBO Max. The risk is, will watching these movies first on television degrade the entertainment experience and later the value? That remains to be seen. Now, let me tell you, for Wonder Woman 1984, which my review is on the channel, please do check that out. I would appreciate it. It's a spoiler review, but I stated in that review, there were moments in Wonder Woman 1984 where I wish I were watching that on the big screen. Like, if there was a theater open close to where I live in Sacramento, I would be there. But unfortunately, it's not. We're not living in that world right now, at least here in California. So, it is what it is. So it remains to be seen exactly if Wonder Woman 1984 will be forgettable. People will just move on to the next thing. How will that source of content affect the movie, the content itself after viewing? Will people go back and revisit it? Will people still talk about it, or will it be a lot more short-sighted than if it were in theaters? We'll see. And so the article continues to go on. Mr. Gross adds, for an individual movie, there is no more profitable business model than a successful theatrical release. That is very much true. It leads to merchandise, theme parks, licensing, as I previously quoted from the article. So look, movies, big budgeted movies that were made for the theaters but moved to streaming services, they're going to lose money. They're going to lose money. They are. Wonder Woman 1984 will lose money. That's a fact. That is a certainty. But there is revenue to be made in subscriptions of streaming service. So can it make up some of that money? Can it make up enough money? Remains to be seen. Netflix has proven that it can make big budget blockbusters, high production budget films, even outbid other studios for movies, put them on the streaming service, and still have the ability to be profitable enough to make more movies. And that's all based on the numbers, subscriptions. So we'll see what Wonder Woman 1984 does and what Warner Bros. Putting their entire 2021 slate on HBO Max does for their numbers. From what I'm hearing, it's pretty damn good, but we'll wait until the official numbers come out. The article continues to say Warner Bros. Released Wonder Woman 1984, which collected $16.7 million domestic. Yes, it will. They will release their entire 2021 slate in a hybrid fashion, movies and theaters and on the streaming service. Warner Bros. Provided only vague information about the sequel's performance on HBO Max. So again, we're still waiting on the exact numbers, but from what HBO Max's representatives are saying, Warner Media's Andy Forcell, direct-to-consumer general manager, he's saying it exceeded the expectations across all our key viewing and subscriber metrics, which led to Wonder Woman 3 getting fast-tracked, as Toby Emmerich announced on Sunday. And as the article states again right here, via Toby Emmerich, our real-life Wonder Woman, Gal and Patty, will return to conclude the long-planned theatrical trilogy. Talks about Hamada's rise of power again. A lot of times, well, that's a quote from Mr. Wan about studio meetings and executives, buzzwords and whatnot, and how he wants constructive, useful, important ideas to the table. Mr. Hamada arrived in DC Films 2018. Yes, we know. When DC Films division was in urgent need of stability. 2 terrifyingly expensive movies, Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice and Justice League, both directed by Zack Snyder, were deemed almost unwatchable by critics. Yeah, but who really cares what the critics say, honestly? It's all about the fans, the casual audiences. How do they feel? I mean, they didn't feel much better, but it's not as bad as this guy's making it sound. And also, Zack Snyder did not. Well, he's credited for Justice League, the 2017 version, but we all know that was mostly Joss Whedon. Well documented, confirmed, which is why we're getting Justice League, the Snyder Cut, Zack Snyder's Justice League. So again, you should have put Joss Whedon in this article as well, not just Zack Snyder. Okay, I get in the sense you're not a fan, but come on now. Anyways, the article then states Hamada and Emmerich had 2 options as far as figuring out how to make various storylines and character incarcerations coexist or start over. Again, so Ben Affleck leaves the Batman role. Robert Pattinson's doing Batman with Matt Reeves. Ben Affleck comes back. You have a standalone Joker movie. Everybody's asking, how is DC going to do a continuity timeline that makes sense? Well, the answer to that is the multiverse, as Walter Hamada so brilliantly described in the DC fandom this past year, and as the article itself summarizes. Multiverse, boiled down, it means that some characters Wonder Woman as portrayed by Miss Gadot, for instance, will continue their adventures on Earth 1, while incarnations Mr. Pattinson as Batman, for example, will populate Earth 2. So different dimensions, different universe. Marvel's doing the same thing with their Spider-Verse. It all comes down to execution and explanation. Talking about the Flash movie, which will heavily use the multiverse and two Batmans. Again, the example that he's talking about with Affleck and Keaton reprising their roles. To complicate matters further, HBO Max gave Snyder more than $70 million to recut his Justice League and expand it with new footage. Mr. Snyder and Warner Bros. Clashed over his original vision. Yes, they did. Which the studio deemed overly grim. Yes, they did. Resulting in reshoots handled by a different director, Joss Whedon. That didn't go well. Thank you for name dropping Joss Whedon. Appreciate that. That didn't go well either. I'm a Snyder fan. I'm a fan of the Snyder Cut. I can't wait for it to come out. I say I'm a fan because I've been rooting for it. I've been calling for it for years. And we're finally getting it. We're 3 months away. I can't wait. But as it goes on, as the article goes on, Zack Snyder's Justice League, now 4 hours long, will arrive in segments on HBO Max in March. Yes. At least for now, Mr. Snyder is not a part of the new DC Films blueprint, with studio executives describing his HBO Max project as a storytelling cul-de-sac, a street that leads nowhere. Okay, where is he getting this information? He says studio execs, again, using unnamed sources. The last time an unnamed source was quoted, it turned out to be wrong. And that quote was, "The Snyder Cut is a pipe dream." No, it wasn't. Here he's saying, he's quoting a studio executive, an unnamed studio executives saying the storytelling for the Zack Snyder Justice League will be a cul-de-sac. It will lead nowhere. Then why the hell would Warner Brothers, Warner Media, AT&T, why would they give Zack Snyder $70 million for his Snyder Cut? I mean, that makes no sense to me. From a business perspective, it makes zero sense. You're investing $70 million, putting it on a subscription service. Yes, you will get subscribers. But that also wasn't really the point now. I mean, initially it was, but now with the 2021 Warner Brothers slate, all their movies going on that streaming service, you know, why you could put the unfinished version of Zack Snyder's Justice League on HBO Max, save $70 million if the story's going nowhere. Maybe give them $5 million. This part right here makes no sense. It makes no sense. And then what if fans love it? I mean, I think fans are going to like this version, at least like this version more than the 2017 version that they got, because they know what they're getting from a Zack Snyder movie. But what if fans want to see more of Cyborg? What if they want to see more of Ben Affleck's Batman? From what I'm hearing, the Snyder Cut is tracking far better than Wonder Woman 84 did, as far as HBO Max, the excitement, the number of subscriptions already. Again, this release of Snyder Cut was a movement. It was a movement. It was trending with over close to 1 million tweets this past year. And calling it a cul-de-sac. I don't know. And not even naming a source. It's just more of this. Okay, whatever. Okay, Boomer. Whatever you say.
Okay.
That was my Google Nest that just went off. That was weird. But anyways, look, could he be right? Probably, sure. But again, these unnamed sources talking about Zack Snyder's Justice League being a cul-de-sac, That's not true. That's not true at all. You notice he didn't see quotation marks on this from Walter Hamada. This movie's already a win because we're getting it. Okay, and the bar has been set very low for Zack Snyder to give us something better. And I think this article, this New York Times, they're going to eat their words. Well, they won't. They'll just write another article later on, but whatever. Anyways, the article continues to say the multiverse concept has worked on television, but is a risky strategy for big screens. These movies need to attract the widest audience possible to justify their costs, and too much of a comic nerd sensibility can be a turn off. So he's reasoning why this won't work. Wow. Walter Hamada grants you an interview, and that's what you do. New actors can take over a character. James Bond is the best example. When multiple Gothams spinning in theaters, I don't think anyone else has ever attempted this, Mr. Hamada said. Audiences are sophisticated enough to understand it. If we make good movies, they will go with it. And that's what the consultant said earlier in the article. Our audience is sophisticated enough to understand multiverse. I think so. Otherwise, Marvel wouldn't be doing it either. So yeah, that's the whole summary. We skimmed through this entire article. Excuse my reading. I promise I read better. It's almost 10 o'clock at night. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about this. And, this whole article is causing a storm on Twitter right now where Zack Snyder's Justice League is trending. Many fans don't believe this unnamed source. I don't believe this unnamed source. Because we don't want it to happen, of course. But again, why give $70 million just to do a cul-de-sac storytelling? The business model for superhero movies, franchises. Warner Bros. Is doing this because they want a franchise. Yes, I agree. Thank you. When it comes out, it will be great. I certainly hope so. But we'll see. And that'll just about do it for my late night rant, DC rant. I just wanted to quickly skim through that article there. And also, I want to leave with this. DC fans, comic movie fans, but DC fans in particular, don't let this stuff bother you. Brush it off, okay? We already won because the Snyder Cut is on the way. It's happening. There's a lot of mixed reviews out there for Wonder Woman 1984. Do not let that affect how you truly feel about the movie. If you like it, you like it. If you loved it, you loved it. If you hated it, you hated it. Just stay true to you, no matter what. That is the best thing you can do. I'm signing off, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Let me know your thoughts on the article on 4 movies a year for DC plus Marvel movies. Could that be fatigue? Let me know if you think Justice League will go anywhere, or did AT&T Warner Media give the director $70 million just to do a one-off, and that's it. My name's Gio. You guys can find me on here. You can subscribe to my channel. I do podcasts weekly, breaking down the news, trailer reactions, and movie reviews. Check out my Wonder Woman 1984 review, please. Spoiler. And you can also follow me on Twitter at Grey Goose Jedi. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of the week. I'll see you at the end of the week with another podcast breaking down the news.